I'm Ross Gurney, Lithgow Council's General Manager. I'd like to commence on behalf of Lithgow City Council by acknowledging the original inhabitants of the land, the people of the Wiradjuri Nation, and show respect to elders past, present and emerging. We would also like to acknowledge our neighbouring Gundungurra and Darug nations. And I'll now pass to Chris Wassef to start the meeting.
Thank you, Ross. I'll just run through, good evening, everyone. Just for those who don't know who I am, my name's Chris Wassef. I'm the project manager for Wasabi Group, who have been engaged by Lithgow City Council to project manage this project on their behalf. We'll go through the agenda now. So focusing today on updating you on the interim reopening of the existing Wolgan Road between myself and GHD. And GHD have been engaged to provide engineering design services and also support throughout the delivery of the interim works, or the interim reopening, I should call it. Also, we'll update you on the Wolgan Road alignment design options 1 and 2. So this is the development of permanent alignment options along the existing Wolgan Road. Again, will be presented by myself and GHD. We'll also have Council provide a general community update. I think we'll hand over to Ross to provide that, and then touch on next steps, and then get into questions and answers. Now, thank you for all the questions you've provided ahead of this session, and we've also got the opportunity to continue to ask questions in the Q&A. So do feel free to ask those questions, and we'll try to get through as many as we can in the time. We are going to try to stick to the 1 hour session that we have, but yeah, very keen to engage and answer questions with you. So we'll just go to the next slide. So in terms of what the interim reopening means, and just to highlight again that an interim reopening is a temporary controlled reopening of Wolgan Road to restore essential access for residents, business and services. It will focus on safety measures that reduce risk in terms of safety, and also as low as reasonably practicable. So that is something that GHD are very much focusing on. It is going to lower the risk to a level that is practicable and cost effective, and also meets the day-to-day needs of accessing that road. But it is an interim situation that will be managed with the use of a TARP, which I will talk around what a TARP is in a minute. So we are working through planning approvals, design, and continue to also have a look at separately the permanent solution, which I will also go through. So in terms of interim reopening, we are making some good progress, which I'll go through. And in terms of the key parts of the interim reopening works, we have a weather station. We've got also early works, which is trying to get in ahead of the main works starting. And in terms of what it will mean in terms of access, we are still committed to the interim reopening, allowing vehicles of up to 12.5 metres being able to access, and 2-wheel drive cars, and not strictly limited to 4-wheel drives. It will continue to be limited to residents and businesses in the same way that the donkey steps are accessed at the moment. That will continue as it is an interim situation and not fit to be open to the public. Next slide. The weather station, we're actually on site today, looking at locations to install the weather station. That work has been engaged. So Diospatial is a company that has a history of weather stations in this part of the world, as well as other parts of the country, and looking at supplying and installing and commissioning a weather station monitoring system. So this is a critical part of the interim reopening. This system is essential for the proposed Trigger Action Response Plan, the TARP, to reopen Wolgan Road. So the weather station will continuously monitor rainfall, volume and intensity, and also it's cloud-based. We've actually been checking reception levels at different locations to make sure we do have a reception quality where we can access it remotely. And also we'll capture this data and generate automated alerts once the TARP is in place. So that's something that is positive. We're looking at the installation to be scheduled and complete within the next month, which will be a good key part for the interim reopening. We've also engaged Gracie and Son Earth Moving, who you may be seeing on site right now. They're engaged as a variation to an existing contract, which they've been working on the Wolgan Road in another part. And to get this early works going, we've been able to issue them a variation. Work has begun on the closed section of Wolgan Road on the 14th of April, and it will last for 4 weeks. So some of the scope and some of the work that they're doing out there at the moment is really preparatory work for the main works. And so that includes clearing debris from culverts, V-drains and drainage pits, inspecting culverts using CCTV to check their condition, and also upgrading drainage grates to help reduce future blockages. There are also some trees that will need to be removed to improve safety, and all areas will be fully cleaned up once works are finished. In terms of access during this time, we have issued notices, and traffic control will be in place. The residents are to continue using the donkey steps for access in and out of the valley during this time. We'll continue to keep the community informed as the works progress. But this is a really important piece of work to get ahead of the main works, which we're actually in design and about to go to procurement for. And I'll talk about that in a moment. In terms of the main works, and just to touch on that, we'll have GHD take us through a detailed summary of this, but just at a very high level. The main works for the interim reopening include slope risk management works to remove loose material. Includes installation of advisory signage and reduced speed limits. Traffic management through narrow sections, including uphill priority arrangement. Temporary lights, traffic lights where two-way traffic is not possible. So we do have some single-way locations, and repair of potholes, shoulders, localized pavement sealing, reinstatement of grading of roadside safety barriers where required, and then also some slope retention works with soil nails, mesh and revegetation to improve stability. So it's quite a comprehensive piece of work we're trying to do throughout this year, and we're moving to program, which is good. Like anything, we continue to have to, and we always must comply with the Environmental Act and planning laws. So we are achieving those, and we do have planning approval for the works that we're doing at the moment. And environmental impacts on the interim works must be assessed. So there's different requirements for the main works for interim reopening. So we have sections where the works are within the conservation areas, which are determined by national parks. And we're also working around works outside of these areas that are determined by Lithgow City Council. The consultation is underway with Aboriginal knowledge holders, and so we are meeting with them on a regular basis, and Heritage New South Wales, and also a biodiversity assessment has been undertaken. So these are things that we're required to do, no matter how big or small the works are. Just highlighting the program, in terms of the current status, we're making good progress. We have planning approvals largely complete. Our design and procurement is well advanced, and so we're looking to go out to tender for the interim main works in May, which is good, and early works are underway. So while we're procuring the main works, we've got Gracie and Sons progressing with some of that early works. We're still committed to the Q3 this year being the road opening for the interim phase, and looking at construction commencing in July. So we're pushing pretty hard and really hard with very, very tight timeframes to get this interim phase open as quickly as possible, and also continuing to consult and get endorsement from the Executive Oversight Committee, which includes Reconstruction Authority and Transport for New South Wales and Council. So we are tracking well with our approvals and investigations. The design is nearing completion with final tender documents being prepared. And also I've talked about the early works. There are risks with this work. We're always working to a tight program, but so far it's looking good. Design completion within a compressed period. So GHD are developing the design documents as quickly as possible and working within a tight program. There are procurement and approval dependencies as well. So we need to follow all the procurement and processes, which includes council approvals, transport and RA approvals in the process of getting these things delivered and procured. And then ultimately the weather. We do have some contingency for weather, but that's always a risk out of our control, but we're working to program at the moment. So just in terms of over the next 4 to 6 weeks, we're expecting that we'll finalise the design and issue the design documentation out for tender. So we will be having a tender briefing in May, and that will really kick off a very short and sharp tender period. We're putting a lot of pressure on the market to turn around a proposal tender within a number of weeks. And then also looking to progress early works on site, which is happening now. So that will continue over the coming weeks. So in terms of the community, what this means for you, the project is progressing as planned, and interim reopening continues to be the current priority for the project team. You will see construction activity increasing from the middle of this year, so particularly when the main works contractor comes on board. And so that will also mean limited or no access during those phases for the existing Wolgan Road. And we also continue to focus on safe and timely reopening. So everything we do needs to make sure that everyone gets home from the construction site safely, and all the works are done in a safe and timely manner. So I'll just pass on to GHD now, who will do a bit of a deeper dive into the interim reopening scope of works and take you through that. So I'll hand over to Samantha and Andy.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Ross and I'm a Senior Engineering Geologist from GHD, and I've been working on the interim reopening works. Next slide please. So today, a bit of an overview of what I'm going to talk about. First, we're going to talk about the interim reopening approach works that will be undertaken. Talk about the main upslope failure, options that we've considered to stabilise that slope, and the solution we're going with. I will then talk about the vehicle access considerations for when the road is open again, and give a bit of an update and a summary about the constructability workshop that we had. So next slide, please. So the interim works are the works that must be undertaken to allow safe reopening of Wolgan Road. These interim works will primarily focus on slopes, pavement, barriers and embankment reconstruction. So looking at a plan view of Wolgan Road, I've highlighted some of the key features that will be undertaken in these interim works. So outlined in green, we will be undertaking the reconstruction of the failed embankments. This is where the road is not wide enough for safe passage of traffic. So these works will restore the road to full width for two-way traffic. There are a couple of locations along the road circled in orange where the slopes have loose debris, and this material will be scaled and removed from the slopes to reduce rockfall risks to the users. The next item of focus is guardrail along the length of the road. So where the barrier is damaged, these barriers will be repaired or replaced, and where missing, the barriers will be installed. So once the works are complete and the road open, there will be a complete length of guardrail along the entire length of the road. And with pavement, the lower portion of the road where pavement is not full width, this will be reconstructed to a nominal 5 metre wide paved corridor and finished with a spray seal. So there will be full length of paved pavement along the entire road. And finally, the main upslope failure, circled in red, where the road is currently only wide enough for one vehicle to get around. This area won't be touched as part of this interim works, and these works will be deferred to within 12 months of reopening. But we will address that, and I'll talk a bit more about that in the next slides. So next slide, please. Yes, so in previous iterations of the interim reopening geotechnical report, L blocks were proposed to retain the material that has come down from the slope. But during the constructability workshop, we discussed a number of issues and problems with these L blocks. They have a long lead time for construction, and they take up a 1 metre wide horizontal footprint at the toe of the slope. So they also have to be installed behind the V drain. So that requires a significant amount of excavation to place them safely. We also considered using mass blocks instead of L blocks, which are shown in the picture on the bottom, because these come as off-the-shelf items, so they don't need the long lead time for fabrication. But these also have a large horizontal footprint and would have to be placed a metre behind the V drain. And the main goal of the works in this area is to restore the road to full width and to clear the V drain so that drainage can function properly. So these two items were considered as not the preferred option in the end. So if we go to the next slide, please. So the solution that we've come up with in the end is to stabilise this slope with soil nails and tension mesh, similar to the photo at the bottom on the left of the slide. So material will be removed and scaled from the road and the drain, so the road is clear of material and the drain can function again. And then once that scaling has been complete, the soil nails will be drilled into the slope and then the mesh installed over the top. This solution has a very narrow horizontal footprint, so it's quite easy to reinstate the road width and the drain function. And there is also the possibility for this solution to be incorporated with the long-term stabilisation solution for the slope in this area. If the road needs to be widened further into the slope, we can remove the mesh and excavate into the slope around the nails and then trim the nails back and then reinstate the mesh over the top. So all the works now would not have to be redone later on as well. This work, so the soil nails and the tension mesh, will take a little longer than the previously proposed L block solution. And that's one of the reasons that these works will be deferred and not happen before the main reopening. The main failed area in its current state has reached a semi-stable state and hasn't shown any significant movement or deterioration in the last few years. And bearing in mind that a safe reopening as soon as possible is a priority, that's why these works have been delayed up to 12 months after the main reopening. Next slide, please. So just to touch on the vehicle access considerations, once these works have been complete, the reopening will be suitable for two-wheel drive light vehicles, as previously mentioned, and heavy vehicles up to 12.5 metres long. But it's important to note that this is one way, so the trucks will occupy a lot of the road when turning around corners, so light vehicles will need to give way to heavy vehicles when they encounter them on the road, particularly around the corners. Next slide, please. All right, so a quick summary of the constructability workshop. We held a workshop with different stakeholders to confirm that the works for the interim reopening can actually be constructed. We considered different construction approaches to deliver the works to standard in order to provide access as soon as possible. The construction approach will generally be from top down the road due to tight working areas, so you can't have multiple work parties in multiple locations at once. So addressing each area from the top to the bottom. We talked about specialised plant such as swivel cab dump trucks or tracked machines that may be required as there's little to no room to turn vehicles around when hauling material up and down Wolgan Road for the embankment reconstruction and also when removing spoil from the slopes. And it's also important to note that during the construction period, only construction vehicles will be allowed to use Wolgan Road, so no access to anyone else other than the construction vehicles. And we also discussed safety and design for this construction, and this meant we were talking about hazards and subsequent risk levels, and then talking about the control measures that were implemented to minimise risks to road users from the construction. And yeah, that's all.
I'll just go through the next part. So now we're focusing on the permanent Wolgan Road alignment and the activities that we're currently doing as well. So we'll put the interim works to the side for us for a moment and go into the detail of the strategic design of the existing Wolgan Road update. So you may remember that we are looking at we currently have new alignment options which we've parked at the moment. So these are options which you may know as 1D and option 4, which are new separate alignments. We are looking at option 1, which is looking at a new road along the full alignment of the existing Wolgan Road, which is a full reconstruction to modern Oz roads and Australian standards. It will be a wider road, improved geometry to the existing that meets those standards, and we'll also have an independent technical review that will have a look at that. So that's option 1 is a new road along the existing alignment. Option 2 is a rectification to the DRFA standards, the Disaster Recovery Funding Arrangements standard and requirements. And so that involves limited improvements, no major upgrades, and progressing with New South Wales RA, Transport for New South Wales and GHD. So GHD are developing designs for option 1 and option 2, which is a rectification. And then there also is a possibility we're going to look at an option 2A, which is picking up all the scope from option 2, which is a rectification, and seeing what other enhancements that could be done with the approval of RA and Transport for New South Wales. So what we want to try to do is by June this year, we want to get to a position where we have a preferred option for the main works for the permanent solution, so that we can progress forward and start to deliver a permanent solution for the valley. So the next step that we're going to take is a multi-criteria assessment, and we will be getting engagement from the community. We're just working through how that looks in terms of the framework and the structure of that, so that it is meaningful and also effective. And we'll also have GHD pull together an assessment process that will also include the new alignment options. So essentially, we'll be looking at the existing Wolgan Road options, but we'll also be looking at the new alignment options, and through a structured process, which will get some involvement from the community to come to an agreed position with endorsement from RA and Transport for New South Wales. That involves a lot of work in terms of developing cost estimates for these options, and there's other criteria that we will go through once we establish the MCA process to identify what are the quantitative and qualitative items that we'll input into that. In terms of our program, the designs for option 1, 2 and 2A are currently underway. And the next step really is to land on the multi-criteria assessment between now and June, and then also get to a position by July this year to have a preferred alignment. So what this means for the community is that there are multiple options being assessed, and essentially, we are re-prosecuting the new Wolgan Road options, which are shown there on the left. and the decisions will balance many criteria, not just cost. So it's not just about finding the cheapest, but there are going to be a whole heap of criteria items which we'll also seek community input into, and also looking to have a preferred permanent road alignment targeting mid-2026, so that we can actually start moving forward again with the permanent alignment. We'll just go to the next slide. Thank you. I'll just go GHD. GHD have done a lot of work on these permanent alignment options, and I'll get Andy to take you through the work that's been done so far. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Andy Oliver, as you can see, Technical Director for GHD. So I'm leading the road design for both these options 1 and 2. If you can just jump on a slide. Yeah, as Chris did briefly mention, the route, you would all know the Wolgan Road alignment. It pretty much both options do follow that route. They don't really deviate too much from either of those. Option 1 particularly has slight changes. It follows the existing alignment, but it does have gradient improvements and it does have curve improvements. So the alignment moves generally moves deeper into the hillside, keeps reasonably away from the downslope failures, because it is a lot easier to construct that upslope solution measure. It has conforming horizontal alignments, both radius and sight distances. So some of the tighter bends on the design, the bend will be cut back a number of meters so as you can actually get more visibility around the curves. It has a conforming vertical alignment, which is maximum 15% grade. And on some of the curves, you notice on the slide earlier that you battle to get trucks around some of those corners. So even with 2 lanes, they will still battle to get around some. So there is lane widening on some of those curves, which will allow those larger vehicles to actually stay in the lane. Obviously makes that route quite a bit safer. The option 2, that definitely follows the existing alignment without really any changes. It does move slightly back into the hillside to regain the width that has been lost. So we might have lost, say, 2 meters of width on a downslope, and we've cut back 2 meters into the upslope to recover that back. So there's a very slight change, but it'll generally follow the same gradients. So there'll be no horizontal change. There won't get any of the curve widenings. It's a it is basically restore the pre-existing condition of what that road was. To move to the next one. So this just shows them in cross section. So option 1 is a full width road, Osro standards. This is perhaps no different to the designs you may have seen across the other side of the valley. It's generally approximately a 10-meter cross section with 2 full 3.2 meter lanes. It's got shoulders, it's got a verge. So it is, and those lanes get up to about 4 and a little bit around the corners where the widening was. The other option 2, just to reinstate the pre-existing, is normally 5. I mean, there's a couple of locations where it's a bit more than that, maybe up to 6. So it would restore the 6, but it won't be adding anything on there that wasn't there in the first place. One noticeable thing, though, they obviously will, as with the interim works, both options have guardrail. I mean, guardrail is required because of the steepness of the land, but it was also there as a pre-existing. So it is able to be provided under DRFA. So that will be installed in both. Move on. Okay, we've got 3 really challenging locations. As I said, we would generally do a cutting into the upslope, which may be a bank anywhere between 4 and 10 meters high. But in these particular 3 locations, one is, as you probably know them all anyway, one at the top of the hill where the land has dropped away badly on the inside of the curve. You can make out actually on the slide what that wall was made out of: large hand cut, I think, sandstone blocks dating back quite a way. They're pretty large, probably, I was thinking they're about the size of telephone box laying on its side, so they're pretty big, and they've dropped straight out of that hole. There's been shotcrete as well in the past, which has also come out of the hole. So the guardrail, that's what you can see in the top there, are the supports for the guardrail hanging in mid-space. So we're looking at a challenge at that location. There's the same slip that Samantha was talking about, is fixing halfway down the road with the saw nail wall, the one on the right, top right. And then there's obviously the large cliff face on the left-hand side, about 100 meters to 200 meters down the road. They're obviously the three real challenging locations, which are causing us a lot of interest. Just to move on. This location, we've possibly got to have a slightly different solution or a much larger version of the same solution, depending on if we're looking at option 1 or 2. So I'll start with option 2 because it is slightly simpler. We probably only need to gain back about 3 meters of that hole that's dropped away. And so there's opportunity, we think, to our structural and bridge engineers are looking at drilling some piles in on the edge, just the other side of where that guardrail is showing on the photograph, and drill some piles down into the rock, and they'd be able to cantilever beams out for a distance of 3 meters, which is similar to what you're seeing in the photograph on the right-hand side. This is not 2 million many miles away. I think this is in the Blue Mountains, actually, those who know Jenolan Caves. The stone wall you see there is actually doing nothing. That's really just blocking up the hole. The support for that beam that you see sticking out sits a couple of meters back underneath the concrete planks, and so that's a cantilevered road structure, which is similar to what we'd be able to design at this point. The larger road for the option 1 needs about 6 to 7 meters of widening, so a similar sort of system, but it will just have to be bigger. There'll be some gruntier piles, there'll be some gruntier beams. System will just have to work harder because the cantilever is going further, and if we can't still get it to work, then there will possibly be some piles drilled out over the hole. So they won't just be drilled where you see where there is still asphalt remaining now. They'll have to actually get a piling rig to hang part way out over the hole and drill some support piles in that bank. Well, they're the options we're looking at the moment. I'll move to the next one. This is quite an interesting location. As you know this very well, this is the large slope with there's some scaling to be done on there and probably some rock bolting to hold that back. But in option 1 with the wide road, there are 2 options to it. Is one, we can build off to the right. You'll actually see this very small writing that says fill and colluvium, that dark brown section. We can build out to the right and have a smaller retaining wall, not as large as the one I was just showing in the previous location, but a smaller retaining wall to retain that, which is probably a good structural design. The other option with that is to do a large rock cutting on the left-hand side. We have got a designer there, and I took the batter slopes off that drawing and transposed them onto the top of this. You can see that grey line that steps backwards up to the top of the picture. That is approximately what a cut batter slope would look like in that location. So we're still investigating that at the moment, but that is one of the options. But the other option, I'd say, is to build a much smaller structure off to the right-hand side on the downslope with a amount of retaining. To go to the next one. And I think you've deja vu, you might have seen this one before. This is what Samantha was talking about. This is the saw nail wall on that corner. As she was saying, for the 5 meter, nominal 5 meter road, the option 2, then we'd pretty much be going with what Samantha was talking about, which is the saw nail wall, which is the red saw nails that you can see in there. I've just put over the top of that, if we were to widen it to make the 10-metre road reserve. We would still get soil nails in the bottom 4, pretty much use the existing red ones, although I've drawn over in blue, and there would be 2 existing soil nails on the top, which I've shown in blue. So the road will be cut back in further, so the slope of the bank will go up higher, so it will actually need a couple more rows of soil nails, but effectively the same type of wall. And that's it. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Andy. We're going through council community update, which I think Ross, are you in a position to go through this slide? Next slide.
Sure, Chris. So recent donkey steps maintenance. Emirates have completed their maintenance works and council has finalised the donkey steps maintenance strategy, which will be released shortly, noting there's only limited opportunity for comment. The strategy has been developed to fit the available funding. The access gate, as everyone would know, the access gate has been installed, fencing scheduled for completion by next week, and council will commence issuing tags on the 4th of May, aiming for a commissioning of the system by end of May 2026. And I do acknowledge there's been a delay with that. There were some issues in getting staff trained and having access to the system themselves and learning how to use that. Donkey steps vehicle escorting. Council-run convoys have recommenced given a recent influx of construction vehicles. The convoys run weekdays 6:30 to 9:30 a.m. and also from 2:30 to 5 p.m. and that will be re-evaluated once current work cease. The Northern Wolgan Road Valley Floor maintenance works, the DRFA funded works are now complete, and there are some additional minor repairs identified during these works which will be undertaken. Thanks, Chris. Sorry, Chris, you're on mute.
That should be better. It's just technology is interesting. So in summary, so we reaffirm our commitment to restoring the interim access as soon as possible. Hopefully the plan you've seen tonight reaffirms that we are continuing to meet our program. We are targeting Q3 and we're throwing everything at it to achieve that interim opening. We do acknowledge that there is continued significant impact on the road closure and throughout this construction phase for the interim reopening works. We acknowledge that is an impact and why we're trying to make that construction phase as short and sharp as possible so that we can open it and give you access back. We'll prioritise safety, transparency and accountability. So everything we've presented tonight is accessible. We'll be also putting this presentation, this webinar online as we did last time. For everyone to have a look at outside of this time. And then also we are progressing the interim works in parallel with the permanent solution. So these are parts that are, again, moving in parallel, and we're going to see a lot of activity as we move into June, July this year across both the interim reopening and the permanent solution. And we are continuing to work very closely with the Executive Oversteering Committee in terms of Transport for New South Wales and RA and Council to get their endorsement on this process that we're going through. So we thank everyone and their patience for the feedback and ongoing engagement. So I think we'll move into questions and answer session. We have had some questions prior to this this session as well. So I might get Rachel to moderate those questions in terms of asking what's been put through, and we'll do our best to answer them in the time that we have.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chris. So we did have some questions prior, so we'll go through those, and there's a couple also that have been raised during the presentation. So we'll start with the question, which I think we've just answered. Peter asked whether this webinar will be available afterwards. It's being recorded, and we'll get that on the website as soon as we can. So Eddie asked, with credible, and this was in advance of the meeting sent to us in the registration, with credible lower cost and faster options presented to council last year, complete with guaranteed delivery, why have these not been taken up? And so, yeah, I'll hand back to Chris to answer that one.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we've addressed this item before. We are unable, and the EOC has supported that position in terms of unable to take unsolicited bids throughout this project. We have to follow not only council's requirements around procurement, but also the requirements around transport and RA that we must follow. So that's the position.
Right. To unmute myself. Hello. There was another question by Eddie, which talks about the financial impact that businesses and residents have been facing every day since the road was closed. And Eddie, you've asked, why is this ongoing burden repeatedly deferred? It's too difficult to address. So Ross, I think you're going to answer that question.
Yes, thanks, Rachel. I can give a response to that. Council acknowledges that residents and businesses continue to experience significant and ongoing impacts as a result of the closure of Wolgan Road. We recognise that these impacts extend well beyond inconvenience and continue to affect livelihoods, family life, well-being and long-term planning for residents. These impacts are not being deferred or dismissed, nor are they viewed as too difficult to address. Our current focus is on restoring interim access to the old road as soon as safely possible. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so there's also a question from, this is again all the questions that were asked before by John. This question is the new road being considered? And also you asked, what is the earliest potential date for open access into Wolgan Valley without lock and key or security gate? So again, Chris, if you could answer that.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of is the new road still being considered? So everything around the funding approval that we have at the moment remains, and we're still committed to developing a solution that will go through this multi-criteria assessment process in the coming months. So as you heard earlier, we are looking at solutions along the existing Wolgan Road and also the new alignment options, option 4 and 1D. They are currently parked until the options that GHD went through tonight catch up. And so we can equally compare those through the multi-criteria assessment. So by the middle of this year, what we want to do is have a preferred permanent alignment that we then progress with into planning approvals, procurement and delivery and construction. The other part of that question was related to, sorry, I missed the second part of that question.
Earliest potential date.
Oh, earliest. Yeah. So the interim reopening will be as per the donkey steps access arrangements. So it will be only for the community and businesses and people that service those businesses, clientele, but will not be for the public. And so the public will have access again once we have completed construction and opening of a permanent solution.
Okay. So there was also a question before the meeting from Dawn asking, can we get back to in-person meetings with adequate time for questions? So Chris, is again back to you.
Yep. So we are continuing to look at how we deliver our updates. We have looked at various ways previously, from being online in Teams to doing them face-to-face to doing them on webinar. Going forward, we are reviewing with Council how best we can maybe go back to face-to-face, but we also need to have it in a structured way which allows all the material to be presented in a way and also is focused for the community as well, because we also have to remember we're going through a number of tendering processes which have confidentiality and probity aspects to them. And so what we'd like to discuss with the community is something that is open, transparent, and not censored in a way which we would be with the likes of the tenderers per se as well. So that's certainly something we're reviewing with Ross and the community, and with Ross and the council.
Okay, a couple of going to turn to the questions that have been asked during the session. Thomas, you also asked a question about the date for reopening, and I hope the answer that was provided before has answered that for you as well. You've also asked about the spot of the road. What about the spot of road failure 20 metres down from the top gate? And that was asked while Sam was speaking, from Samantha from GHD. So Sam, do you want to just respond to that?
Sure. So for the interim works, the guardrail will be replaced and installed in front of that road failure, so road users are protected from the edge when using Wolgan Road. This will restrict the road to being single lane access, but because there is enough sight distance along that part of the road, the traffic will be managed with uphill priority signs. So there's enough distance to see in that single lane area. And then remediation of that section to full road width will be undertaken as part of the permanent solution.
Thanks, Sam and Thomas. Hopefully that has answered your question. If not, please put another one in the chat. Andrew, you have talked about the DEFRA funding and whether that covers option 1's removal of the cliff face. So, Chris.
Thanks. In terms of option 1, so option 1 is a brand new alignment following the Wolgan Road alignment. So it's not a rectification under the DRFA. It's something that we've been asked to include as an option by the EOC to have it comparable to options 4 and 1D, which are the brand new alignments outside of the corridor. So it would be an option that has been included in the list along with option 2, which is a rectification as an option. But yeah, so it's not obviously DRFA compliant to remove that cliff face, but it's not supposed to be a DRFA compliant option, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does.
Thanks, Eddie. I also noticed that you've reiterated and responded. You're asking that same question, so hopefully that's answered it for you. Andrew, also you've asked a question about, is any preventative work planned for the 3 sections of Wolgan Road that are threatening to collapse into the river? So I might actually hand that over to our GHD colleagues, Sam or Andy. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I can take that. I'm personally not familiar with the particular sections that you're talking about, so maybe if you could specify those sections and we'll have a look into it and take it on notice.
Great. Thanks, Sam. And yeah, Andrew, please provide more information if it will really help the team out. Andrew's just joined the meeting again. He must have been chucked out for some reason. Okay, so there are no more questions, I don't think, that have come through, and we did cover all the questions off from before the meeting. So I'll just give us a couple of minutes if there's any other questions, because we are sort of 10 minutes ahead of the hour. If there's anything else that people want to pop into the Q&A, please do so. Otherwise, we will close the webinar a bit early.
Just while we're waiting to see if there's any further questions, I'll just make a quick comment on continuity from council's end. Community members will be aware that Jonathan Edgecombe is leaving council, and he's leaving at the end of this week. I'm engaging a contractor to fill the role full time, so will be a new staff member. That's still to be signed off at the HR level, so I haven't announced anything as yet as far as the details of this person, but I will very soon. And then we are commencing a recruitment process for a permanent replacement for Jonathan. So just to assure the community that there will be continuity there, there'll barely be a gap between someone being in that role, and there will be someone even acting in the role next week before our contractor starts. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so Eddie, you've just answered another question, just probably asking for further clarity. I'll just read out exactly what you've said, so I'm not getting it wrong. I don't feel this question was answered in full. Can you please address this again? In addition to Andrew's question, can you please advise us on the option 1 funding in contrast to option 2 being DRFA eligible? So, so it's not just whether option 1 is funded. It's I guess what's the funding option for what's the funding situation for option 2 as well?
So the process that we're going through at the moment is GHD are developing the design, and we haven't costed them as yet because GHD are still in the process of developing the design for costing. So the key deliverable from GHD is a strategic design, and we'll get North Projects to cost each option, and that's what goes into some parts of the criteria for the multi-criteria assessment. So it is a new alignment using the same design principles that the other new alignments have. It just happens to be on the same corridor as the existing Wolgan Road. So that's the key difference between option 1 and 2. We are for option 1 looking at the same design criteria as a new alignment, but it just happens to be on the existing Wolgan Road to make sure if actually putting a new alignment on that existing road is at all viable. So we are going to go through that process, cost it, and if there are any red flags, that is a significant rock face that would be addressed. So that may or may not even make it into the MCA process, but we've just updated the design. It's still really fresh in terms of what GHD are producing. So there are a few steps to happen before we close out what happens with option 1.
Okay, there's a question here from Paul. The section of road under risk of being eroded into the creek is under a separate DRFA agreement, which is currently being investigated, and will be progressing with a site meeting on site with council staff and fisheries to get input into design criteria. So I think that's more of an answer there.
Yeah, that's from
yeah. Okay, awesome. Okay, excellent. Sorry, I read that as a question. It's a response. I hope that's helped. So is there any other questions? I'll just give it a couple more minutes. Yeah, so Andrew, you've asked a question are North projects the same people who concluded that the repair of the existing road would cost 400 million?
I'd have to have a look at the history on that, but it has been the same cost estimator. Whatever the that cost reference is, I'm not sure, but yeah, we have been using the same cost estimator. We will also continue with the approach of having independent cost concurrence, which is an independent cost reviewer that reviews the cost plan as part of standard QA, and this is what actually Transport for New South Wales do as well. So any cost estimate that is developed is independently checked and verified, and then also we do share with Transport for New South Wales, and ultimately is assessed as part of the application process to confirm funding for the preferred solution as well. So it will need to go through an independent technical reviewer. So fortunately or unfortunately, there'll be a number of estimators that will review and independently check and verify any work that North do.
Okay, well, we're 3 minutes to the hour. I don't think there are any more questions that I can see. So let's give it a minute. I do want to give the opportunity to ask questions here for the full hour. But I'm just checking, I think everything has been answered. So all questions that have been posted during the meeting and all questions that were provided in advance have been answered. I just want to be sure of that. Yeah, okay, so I'll end the meeting there. There's a lot of information there. I hope you found it useful. I hope you've been able to ask your questions and have them answered adequately. And yeah, look forward to seeing you all soon. So thank you, everyone, and good evening.